So you love podcasts, and you want to listen to more amazing content, but you have no idea what to listen to. And your friends keep telling you about great episodes, yet you can never remember what they told you. Well, here's the answer. Good Pods. It's the social app dedicated to podcasts where your friends, podcast listeners, and favorite podcast hosts all come together to share on their feeds what they recommend and what they listen to. You can connect to others, bookmark episodes, start a conversation about the episode, connect to the hosts, and most importantly, listen to great podcasts right in the Good Pods app. Download Good Pods wherever you get your apps and start sharing with a community that loves to listen. Good Pods. It's where to connect and listen.
You know what always cheers me up? Rolled up aces over kings. Check raising stupid tourists and taking huge pots off of them. Playing all-night high-limit hold'em at the Taj. Stacks and towers of checks I can't even see over. And Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
I don't need to teach you to be more like me. I need to teach you to be more like you.
Longtime listener and huge fan.
Lou, I am tremendous.
And the more I'm plugged in technology and people, the more I can serve people with technology.
What you're standing for with connection, I think it's the key to everything.
You're just an amazing breath of fresh air for sure.
Lou, you're a diamond in the rough, my man.
Because for me, if I'm not living high energy, I'm surviving and I want to be thriving.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
I love it.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have a global expert on purpose-driven business and the best-selling author of Selling with Noble Purpose, How to Drive Revenue and Do Work That Makes You Proud. She has spent 2 decades helping leaders increase competitive differentiation and emotional engagement. Her work debunks the myth that money is the primary motivation for most employees. Thrive Loud listeners, Lisa McLeod. Lisa, how are you today?
I am excellent.
So, selling with noble purpose. I've been selling my whole life. I don't ever really put myself in a noble category. So I'm curious to know how this became the message that you deliver. Can we rewind a little bit to understand how that became kind of a focus or a direction that you've been communicating with?
Well, the words selling and noble don't typically go together. We do not think of salespeople as a noble profession, but actually it all started with a research project that I did about 12 years ago that revealed that salespeople who truly want to make a difference to their customers actually outperform salespeople whose focus is on their internal targets and quotas. And what's interesting is everything inside most organizations and often inside our heads points us to trying to close a deal and hit our own number, but we know that that actually has a chilling effect on customer engagement.
It's very true, because it's about really the connection you have and how you are trying to serve and help them versus how you're trying to help yourself.
Right. And we've long said that in sales training, but I had an experience, this research project I did about 12 years ago was with a big biotech firm. And they wanted us to identify the difference between the good salespeople and the exceptional salespeople. And it was a double-blind study. And I was out in the field, meaning that we didn't know who was who. We went out in the field, we worked with all these salespeople, assessed them, questions they asked, backgrounds, just trying to get our hands around what's that magic thing. Mm-hmm. And we know that it shows up in the numbers in sales. And this was 12 years ago. The purpose conversation wasn't really happening at work. And I happened to be with this one sales rep, and I asked her this question just out of sheer coincidence. We were at the Phoenix airport. It was hot as hell. I was about to get out of the car and hoof it up to the terminal. And I thought, I'm just going to sit here and enjoy this air conditioning for one more minute. And so I asked her, what do you think about when you go on sales calls? And I'll never forget her answer. She said, I always think about this one particular patient. She said, I was in the doctor's office, had my suit with my name badge on. So, you could tell who I was. And this little lady comes up to me and says, are you the representative for this drug? And she said, yes, ma'am, I am. And the little lady says, well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for giving me my life back. because prior to taking this, I couldn't go anywhere and do anything. Now I can get on a plane, fly across the country, visit my grandkids, get down on the floor and play with them. And as the sales rep is telling me this, she's getting really emotional. And she says, that's my purpose. I think about her every single day.
Inspiring from that aspect. Let me try and direct it, though, into an interesting, challenging question, because we do look at the numbers when we're measuring our performance, and we do need to see those numbers go higher if we're looking to grow or maintain or rebound in whatever way that is. So how do you help lead a sales force to understand that nobility actually is going to drive the numbers when those numbers keep just jumping out at you? How do you divide that analysis or the way that you lead and coach your salespeople to grow?
Well, you hit on it. It's the way you lead and coach your people. And it is crucial now where reputations are being won and lost based on perceived intent. So let me tell you, this salesperson, I'll take you a little bit back to the study and tell you what the data tells us. This salesperson spoke about this. So I went back to all the other interviews with all the other sellers, looking for people that alluded to this sense of this thing I now call noble purpose. And I found 4 more, so 5 in total. And I went back to the biotech company. They said, who do you think our top representatives are? Keep in mind, it's a blind study. We didn't know who was who. I said, I think it's these 5. I was 100% right. And that one seller who talked about making a difference to this grandmother, and the individualness of this is actually really important for a seller. She was the number 1 rep 3 years in a row. So the biotech company says to me, and you got to keep in mind who runs a biotech company, scientists and MBAs. So they say, well, how did you know? Like they think I'm like magic now. And I say, you ever have one of those meetings where you're talking and your words are just like sliding across the table and they're not working? I say, well, these people had a different story in their heart. I tell a room full of MBAs and scientists, and they go, okie dokie. And I just blah, blah, blah. I did not have a great answer. So to your question, how do you get your sellers to understand this? That only took another decade to figure that out. And that's why.
Well, so I'm gonna bring something to your attention, because this is something that I believe when I work with top leaders, salespeople, marketers, and I want to see if you agree with this. One of the worst terms ever that I don't know how it ever became this thing. They use the term soft skills.
Yeah.
These communication skills that were a little bit more empathetic, or the way that you would understand, or the listening abilities, all these things. Lisa, I think these are super skills. Do you think that part of this noble aspect of selling, or the noble purpose that people have, also is embodied in the fact that they are embracing those super soft skills versus the traditional harder tactics and the traditional methods that really help grow sales?
Absolutely. And so you ask, how does a sales leader implement this? So here's a way to think of it. We think of hard skills and soft skills, and you're right, they're super skills. But the difference is quantitative versus qualitative. And we think of the hard skills as the things that drive quantitative results. And we think of the soft skills as these more gauzy qualitative things. But here's what we found over the ensuing years since that study. Number 1, these qualitative skills, which is having this noble purpose mindset, the ability to sit with uncertainty on a sales call and not have to jump in every second. There were 5 core habits of these noble purpose sellers. So those drive more revenue. They close bigger deals, they close stickier deals, and they close higher margin deals. But the second thing people need to know is these are teachable. And the way that you do it, so compare the difference between 2 sellers. I'll give you a super quick example. One seller, their boss is in their ear and they says, you're behind on the pipeline. You need to close this deal. I want you to go in there. You've got this. You can close it. We need this deal. It's $100,000. It's $10,000. It's $1 million, whatever it is. Close it, close it, close it. You got this. You go, guy. Girl, you get this. Versus another seller whose boss says to them, you need to make a difference to this customer. Our noble purpose is to improve life for this customer, and I want you to go in and do it the biggest, boldest way you can. If you're the customer, who would you rather have calling on you?
The latter.
Of course.
I'm sorry. Was that a question to me or to the listeners? I just had to jump in.
Any of us know. And so what we need to know is, so I'll give you three quick things. We decoded all this in Selling with Noble Purpose, but there's 3 things that a leader can do right now. Number 1, identify how you make a difference to customers. Not your standard boring value prop, blah, 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 blah. Not your feature side by side, but how do you actually have an impact on customers? Do you make it easier for them to do their job? Do you help them sleep at night? Do you help them speed up things? Do you help them win more business? How do you make a difference to customers? Number 1. And if you don't know, ask your sales team. Number 2, tell some stories about how you do that, because you've got to shift the narrative. And number 3, this is crucial. In every pipeline review, ask your seller. And after you ask them, when are you going to close it? How much is it going to be? Who's the competition? All the stuff we ask, we call this a game-changing question. How will the customer be different as a result of doing business with us? Ask every seller that in every pipeline review. Like literally, if you do those 3 things and you can start tomorrow, you will shift the narrative, because you want to make your noble purpose, the impact that you have on customers, as clear and present as the sales targets are.
You're solving a problem for your clients to help them do better in their business, be better for their customers, be better for their end customers, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Many businesses will be like, totally get it. That makes total sense. And then there are those that might deal with something where maybe they can't answer that question as clearly, because maybe the product they sell is a little bit more commoditized, or maybe it's uncertain whether it's going to make the difference or not. Is that the difference between making the sale or not?
If you can't articulate it internally, it will be very difficult for your salespeople to articulate it externally. And I would challenge people, and I would say, if customers are buying from you, you're making a difference. We did this with a concrete company. Okay, you might not think that concrete has a noble purpose, but you could try living your life without it.
That building is not going to be standing.
You can't. We've done this with a concrete company and a plumbing company. We've done this with Dave & Buster's, okay? And all 3 of those, the concrete company deals in residential, and they decided that, if you've ever called a contractor, hit or miss, maybe they come, maybe they don't. They said, we're going to redefine our whole industry. And they did. And so their seller's job was to go out and redefine. This is a company called Foundation Support Works. We did it with a plumbing company, and they said it's creative solutions for comfortable living. Like we're going to make your office, your home, like you've never seen before. And we did it with Dave & Buster's, and they said we're going to champion laugh out loud fun. So, I mean, those are 3 very different companies. And so what you have to define is, how do you make a difference and how do you do it differently? Because your product may not be the differentiator, your people might be.
Lisa, as it relates to the business of Lisa McLeod, in understanding when people are buying your services, what is the noble purpose that you help them with?
So our noble purpose is we help leaders drive revenue and do work that makes you proud. So we are about helping companies, and people are often surprised at this because they think I'm all about the purpose and not about the money. I've worked for an organization that was not making money. It ruins people's lives. So I know that, to be clear. So we are all about helping organizations drive exponential revenue growth, sticky revenue, recurring revenue. And the connection to the do work that makes you proud is, we know that you have got to create emotionally engaged, passionate salespeople if you want to create emotionally engaged clients. So the 2 metrics that we look at are the emotional engagement of the seller and all the traditional sales metrics on revenue and deal size and margin. And those are parallel. And our work moves the needle on both of those.
Lisa, for our listeners, how do you measure the emotional side?
So there's a couple ways. And again, it's qualitative. So the usual questions, do you care about your job, blah, blah, those are boring and they don't get the best answers. They'll identify whether your people like working there or it sucks. So it will tell you that. But one of the things that we do with sales teams is we teach them how to tell what we call a customer impact story about and it's very individual. That one sales rep I mentioned that said a grandmother. Mm-hmm. all the other reps in that business could recite, we show a 35% improvement in blah, 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 which is great, but it's not emotionally engaged. So the way you measure this, and we did this, and this is in the book, Selling with Noble Purpose, we did this at Hootsuite. We taught people how to tell a customer impact story, which is a time that your solution made a difference to a customer. And it didn't even have to be about when you sold it.
Right.
Just this is what we do. And we taught them how, we coached them, and then we had a story off. So they competed on who could tell the best story. And we had winners, and that embeds it in the hearts and minds. So that's one way that you measure it. Another way that you can measure it is a lot of our clients measure how many referrals they get, because that's the sales version of the NPS score, is how many clients refer you and how warm is the referral. So people ask how to measure it, and the example that I always give is figure skating.
Okay.
You got technical merit, easy to measure, easy to spot. Artistic impression, harder to measure, but we know it when we see it. It is measured, and you can lose it on technical merit, but you won't win it on that. You'll win it on artistic impression.
Lisa, I've been watching sports my entire life, and they keep changing the way they measure figure skating. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know what the heck is going on those skates. As long as they don't fall, I root sometimes for them to fall, but that's not nice.
But let me ask you this. Let me go back to this, because I'm not a figure skater. Never have been. None of my kids were figure skaters. I've only watched figure skate at the Olympics. So what does that mean? I've watched figure skating 12 times in my whole life. Do you know? So I would ask you, when you watch figure skating at the Olympics, can't you usually tell who's going to win?
You know, and I'll even put it on another thing. You know, when it seems, and specifically, I'll use women's figure skating more so than not, because it seems that just about every single creative long program of any figure skater ends with this massive spin at the end where they finish on the dime. Like, I would hope one day time it just ends up with like they jump out of the building or something. But it's always the same finish. They're always doing a really quick finish, but you can tell by the smile on their face that they nailed it, and the crowd can feel it because they've exuded a connection to that artistic impression of their performance that really stood out. Yeah, all the little technical things. And trust me, when they fall, the big technical things like that, not hitting your sales numbers for a quarter is going to resonate big times. But when you do, and you do well, and then you really hit the home run because you saved somebody's life, your product did that. It stands out, and it's the message that connects the most with your audience.
That's right.
I totally get it.
And so what we've done when we work with sales teams is we identify one or two of the artistic impression measures. And the reason that this is so important is those are the leading indicators. The words and beliefs of your sales team and the leaders are the leading indicators. The sales numbers are the lagging indicators. And it's like, I'm going to use a second sports analogy. I rarely do this, but it's like if you're managing a runner and you go faster, go faster, go faster. They'll go faster, but then at a certain point, you can't just keep shouting at them. You've got to look at their strength and conditioning. You got to look at their nutrition. And what we find is there's two things happening right now that make this idea of selling with noble purpose crucial. Employees are having an existential crisis where they're saying, who am I and why am I here? And why does my work matter? And customers are asking, are you here to help me or are you just here to close me?
Right. Great point.
And so you've got to be clear on your intent with your team.
I love asking all the guests that come on Thrive Loud this question, Lisa. Very curious to see where this goes. Look, you've got a spectacular book. You've got a great practice. You're helping your companies thrive each and every day, which means you're thriving all the time. But we do have days when we're not quite kicking.
Time.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say is most of the time. Some days we're not kicking on all cylinders. Lisa, on those days when you're not quite thriving, what practice do you seek or what individual do you seek out to get yourself back on the thriving track?
So I do a couple of things when I'm not. And with everything that's gone on, there've been ups and downs days like everyone else. So one of the things that I do is I try to address the physical first. So sleep, a walk, really get back into my body, because I find when I'm not thriving is when I'm just in my head and I'm worried about the future versus getting into my body at the moment. So yes, I put on Dancing Queen and dance. So that's the first thing I do. After I address the physical, the other thing that I do, And I started doing this, as for many of us, after I saw this happening with sales teams, I realized it was happening with me, is when you look at the mountain ahead of you, it can feel really big. And so what you oftentimes when you're not thriving is because you're not having the sense that you matter. You see, human beings want belonging and significance. And so one of the things I do, as cheesy as it sounds, is every time we finish a project, we'll usually get the CEO or someone to talk about how it made a difference to them, but we'll also get some of the rank and file salespeople to say, this is what happened for me. And sometimes I'll get emails to that effect, is I go back and read them, because what that does is it strengthens your backbone, and it says, okay, my work counts for something. I can live to do it another day. And that's, you want to have an arsenal of stories that tell you my work matters. And so for me, I address the physical piece first if I'm just physically exhausted. And then I address the mental piece of strengthening that neural pathway and saying, this job matters. And I learned that from the research said that when you have a greater sense of purpose, you have more tenacity and more resilience, and you put forth more effort over time. So I thought, well, there's a thought. I could do that myself.
Lisa, let's do this. Share with the listeners all the places people can find you, your website, your business, your books, all that. We will put it on the show notes, but it always gets more engagement when they hear it directly from you.
So Google Selling with Noble Purpose, our website will come up. You can follow me on LinkedIn. We do lots of videos. The three things I'm really doing with my time right now are I'm speaking at a lot of conferences, especially a lot of sales kickoffs, consulting with executive teams, and I'm putting tons of free content out there on LinkedIn, and we have a Work on Purpose newsletter. So follow me on LinkedIn. You'll see all the stuff that we're doing.
Permission to go down Fun Street with you, Lisa.
I love Fun Street. It's part of how we recharge.
Share with the listeners one or both of your all-time favorite movies, because we had a discussion before we
did have a discussion. So my new favorite movie, which dislodged a 30-year favorite, my new favorite movie, it's not even that new, is The Greatest Showman.
Why does that movie connect so much with you?
It connects with me on multiple levels. One, I did a book report on P.T. Barnum when I was 10 years old, and I knew that this was a big story. And I am just glad that the producers finally came around to it. And it's because it's the story, and he's a little more complex than the movie made out, but the general story is there. It's the story of engagement. And you matter, and this is important, and one person can make a difference, and seeing everyone come together and say, like, there's joy as a possibility, and moving the needle on a culture, which he did through one person, matters. It makes a difference. And if you're thinking now, wait, he invented the circus, and the circus was bad for elephants. We wouldn't even know about elephants if he hadn't invented it. That's how we came to love elephants.
You also just connected the importance of why that other movie, which I'll share. Can I? Is it all right?
Oh, yeah. My second favorite movie. Oh, they're tied. They're totally tied. It's a Wonderful Life.
And I guess for the same reason.
For the same reason. And one of the things I love, I didn't know when I was a child, and just so you know, when I watched as a kid, it was an old movie even then. Okay. So I'm old, but I'm not that old. But when I watched it as a child, I just remember thinking, one person matters. So, wow. Obviously it's what we all think when we watch the movie. But then as an adult, what I kind of got this affinity for is, and the underdog business can win. And that's carried with me. I work with a lot of banks, and I'm like, George Bailey was a banker. Don't forget.
My wife makes fun of me to this day that when that movie comes on once a year on whatever, I think it's NBC that airs it every year. When it comes on and he runs through the town and says, "You old building and loan, I am a waterfall. I'm tears."
Oh, yeah.
It's the only stuff. I don't cry on sad stuff. I cry on happy stuff. And that would be that. That I guess. But anyway. All right. So the way we do speed round here on Fun Street, Lisa, is I'm going to ask you something. And the first thing that comes to your head that makes you feel good, makes you kind of lifts you up or makes you thrive is really what we're looking for. You ready?
Okay. I'm in.
Okay. A song that pumps you up or lifts you up.
Dancing Queen.
A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Pork chops.
Favorite dessert?
Dark chocolate.
An activity you wish you did more of?
Water ski.
An activity you wish you did less of?
Sit.
If you could snap your fingers and go anywhere in the world, where are you?
Italy. Watching the sunset in Tuscany.
It's probably been about 500 plus episodes of Thrive Loud. We've only done this for like the last 50 or so. You, Lisa, could be my co-partner if we had Family Feud and we were actually to do the speed round. You did it quickly. You were there. You didn't even know the questions. You jumped on it right away. I have to give you credit, Lisa, for being that on top of it for all these things that, you know, lift you up and elevate you. That's pretty
Excellent.
good.
I think I give a lot of thought to these things. And I probably, you know, when you asked what the purpose of our business was, it was drive revenue and do work that makes you proud. At the core, I want people to wake up excited to go to work, at least on most days. Because one of the things that I realized a long time ago, and so I'm really conscious of my own mood and what makes me happy, because I had two parents and one really liked their job and one didn't. And I saw the effect it had on me as a child. And so it sort of embedded in me this idea that, like, you got to be happy. It's a moral obligation for you to be happy and for you to be engaged, not all the time and not faking it, but like, you got to figure that out for yourself. Otherwise, you make everyone around you miserable.
Lisa McLeod, leading with noble purpose and selling with noble purpose, right? I'm really looking behind you.
Books, yes.
I'm looking behind you. I see both. We'll put all the links for all the show notes for people know this, but truly an honor to have you on the program. Thank you so much for coming, and hopefully you had fun here on Thrive Loud.
I did have fun.
You got it. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
Intoxicating you.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Head on over to Spotify, Good Pods, or wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe and listen to all of our incredible episodes. Follow Lou at Thrive Loud everywhere on social media, and head on over to thriveloud.com to connect directly to Lou and learn how you and your business can thrive loud too. Thanks for listening.